Welcome back to the Valorant Challenge. As a quick note, I'd like to give a heads up to returning viewers that probably noticed there wasn't a video last week. And the reason for that is because I was on holiday, so I've decided to not count that week as part of the challenge. So what that means is that the challenge will actually finish next week on the Friday, and then we're planning to do a sort of wrap-up episode afterwards. So if you're sort of feeling like, where's this episode and why are we a week behind, that's why. So without further ado, this is Vanadam. Let's get into it. So we've arrived at week 3. We've only got 1 week left, and I suppose as an immediate question, you're probably thinking, are we going to make it to gold by the 4th week? Well, the straight answer from me is it's been quite a slog just to get to silver 1, and while I'm not thinking that I'm down and out, I'm definitely going to have to think a lot about how I proceed going forwards. Admittedly, I broke 3 or 4 of my own coaching rules to get to the point where I'm at right now, which I'm not proud of, and ironically I think doing that's actually made it take longer than it otherwise would have. I wouldn't even be afraid to admit that I've started to get a little bit of ranked anxiety sometimes, especially with this week, as I managed to get to bronze 3 with 95 points. No word of a lie, 5 or 6 times. So it got to a point where I felt like getting to silver 1, which, let's be real here, isn't really that high of a rank. It started to almost feel impossible, because every time I got to that last match for promotion, something really stupid happened, like having 4 members on the team. It went to like a 16 round epic, where then we decided we were going to draw, and I got like 2 RR, or it was just the fact that we don't always have good games, and so I will openly put my hand up and say it was my fault that my team lost. And obviously with that being the case, then clearly I don't deserve to be silver in those games. But it just became this recurring thing. The important thing though is that as time's gone on, I've started spotting areas to improve, and it's becoming easier and easier. But the issue is that the actual improvements take a lot longer to impose. Such as the limit when you're growing at something. The largest amount of growth at something is always at the start. I think that's fairly obvious, and you can see that with like the aim labs results we've gone over and things like that. Quick improvements early on tend to be the thing that sort of drive you forward, but as you get to higher and higher ranks, again, let's be real here, silver's not really high, but with no prior experience, you get what's called diminishing returns, where you have to put more work in to get further. And so this week, this video is all about the things that I've started to notice and go over this that's helping me to continue to rank up and has helped me to escape from bronze. So let's have a look at the first section, which is looking at aim labs and its limitations, and how the use of it is definitely going to be changing for me based on what I've found out this week. So it's pretty clear at this point that I've been a strong advocate for aim labs and its use on helping improve mechanics, and I still think it's a great tool for allowing you to familiarise yourself with the coordination you're going to need to succeed in FPS titles. There's a large amount of discussion around the ideas of muscle memory, and I've even used that term in my previous video, and coordination for aiming alongside things like mouse grip, sitting stance and ergonomics. And at this point, I think it's important that players, especially starting out, try different positions of seating based on research online, just looking at articles and things. But also trying to find one you like, and then every so often just trying to find a different one. You only need to look online or at esports events to see how different pros sit. And while I'm not saying you should sit there with your nose sort of like 5mm from the screen, different people have different levels of success with different seating points, and the stuff that you see someone else do may not necessarily be the thing that works best for you. I've changed my set position slightly, as aim labs told me that I was weak on the left hand side in multiple tasks, and the really silly thing is when I actually looked at the reason for that is because the play space for my mouse was much smaller on the left than it was on the right. So what I've done is I've slightly changed the way I sit, I've slightly changed the angle of the screen, not by much, only very slightly, but now I have an equal amount of playing space on both sides. And I've also turned the sensitivity down for the 3rd time. We were playing at 0.36 earlier on at 1200 DPI. Then in week 1 we turned it down to 0.26 at 1200 DPI. And now what I've done is I've changed it down to just 0.2 at 1200 DPI. For those number buffs among you for Valorant and all this eDPI stuff, that basically puts me right on the cusp of the bottom of what people call medium sensitivity. I feel that lowering the sensitivity now I've got better has made it much easier to aim, especially when I'm trying to do one taps with the Vandal at longer ranges. I've still got work to do on weapons like the Phantom and the Sheriff, but for the Vandal especially, it's made a big difference. Additionally, having this larger play space and the space to aim properly at lower sensitivity, I've been able to practice much more on flick aiming, and this is really helped by doing the motion shot, grid shot, and multi-shot tasks on Aim Labs. One of the things I would like to say though is that sometimes certain tasks should not be used to develop skills. So for example, the reaction-based tasks like audio detection and visual detection, my scores have not changed. Since I started doing it properly, I'll save that story for another time, it's not changed. And I think that going forward in my training especially, I'm going to look more into more in-game things, like having a custom game where someone's walking around and I'm trying to figure out where exactly they're stood. Because sometimes, I don't know again if it's the sonar software, but sometimes it'll sound like someone's walking to the left in front of me. But because of the way that the sound bounces off the walls, it sounds really strange. It doesn't sound right. So I guess I need to look at that again. And as well as the sound stuff, I'm going to be looking at some more peripheral vision stuff as well. Because I still feel like sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes the peripheral vision, I'm not catching things when I'm swinging around corners, especially when it's with the gun on the right with how I swing, and it's caused me to die quite a few times. So they're the things from Aim Labs that I'm going to be working on. It's the same position, it's the game space, and it's the openness to change sensitivity. Especially practicing different things, like you're going to practice aiming with your fingers versus aiming with your arm, and stuff like that. So that's Aim Labs for this week. The next section I want to talk about is starting to watch and starting to play with better players. I have definitely put a much bigger focus on queuing duo, trio, or even in 5 stacks this week using a Discord that I found. And it's taught me a lot about team dynamic and character roles. It's really made a difference to the way that I play in terms of when I'm following, when I'm going to look at a map, when people are going to enter, and just overall trying to be more synchronized with the team. You can have that whole discussion about when teammates bait you and things like that, but are they really baiting you, or are you misunderstanding what they're trying to do? I mean, you could have, in some cases you could say yes, but in some cases it's also a fact of they weren't baiting you at all, you just misinterpreted what they were trying to get you to do. And another thing is, whenever talkative teammates chat, I've also, you know, everyone enjoys the nice little, oh, NT, nice try, when it was a nice try, but what I've said is I've gone one step further in talkative lobbies, and especially my pre-mades, and said, hey, thanks for the nice tries, but when I'm trying to clutch in something and I don't win the round, is there anything you notice that I missed? Could you just tell me? Even if it's just through like a DM in game. And people tended to be quite open to doing that, and it really made a big difference with things like saying, oh, you're approaching from this angle, you were aiming here instead of there, and it's just really helped me to notice like really small things. As always with advice though, people don't always get it right, and so then there'd be a conversation in the chat, and then we come to a conclusion based on sort of what we thought should happen after that initial thing was said. So starting to play with other players, starting to watch better players using the death cam, starting to play in pre-mades, it has made a huge amount of difference to the way that I play the game, and it's also made me enjoy it a lot more, even though I did enjoy it anyway. So that is stuff for players and myself with the death cam and stuff this week. And the final section for this week is the use of online resources. I've begun to watch a lot of online videos of different YouTubers, some of them that are really popular, like Eggwick and things like that, and then some of the skill capped stuff, obviously, but there's some standout videos that especially helped me this week that I'm going to include. And Generally speaking, the how to get out of bronze and all that sort of videos tend to focus on a lot of the same things, but some of the things I felt in particular that were really helpful for me is things like crosshair placement can always be better, movement mechanics and crosshair placement when you're swinging, you know, so you're only on the horizontal axis. That is something you can always get better at. Proper shooting mechanics with different guns and not spraying. There's been a lot of stuff about the Ferrari peak this week, about like TikTok videos and stuff about people swinging out and just swinging all the way out while their enemy is spraying, and then they just one-tap them. So like thinking about different swing angles, simple setups for sights on attacking and defending without going into like the lineup Larry Central stuff. It's nice to have setups, it will help your team. Understanding the role of other players and what they will do to let you know it's time to go in. So like when the Reyna uses Leah, you should probably support the Reyna so that even if they get killed, you can get the trade. So then you end up with a 2-for-1. And general just game map sense and awareness and settings and things like that. But some of the great videos that I found this week was these three. So we've got Stop Blaming Your Gun, the gunfight hygiene video by Woohoo Jin. That's linked in the description. I put the thumbnail in the video now. Continue to develop aim by understanding core concepts of mouse and keyboard movement. So this is mouse drift. If you ever have the thing where your mouse slowly ends up coming off the table. That was by a YouTuber. I think it's a personal channel. I found it on Reddit. It's called Hyphen. And he does it in an example using Osu and Aimlabs. And then finally, one of the more popular Valorant YouTubers, we've got Brush, who's done the Ultimate Viper Guide for Pearl. I did use other videos as well when I was learning. So I've done Pearl, I've done Breeze, I've done some on Fracture as well. And this applies to other characters, not just to Viper, when learning how to go for execution on a site. And while I didn't sit there and learn how to do all the snakebite lineups, it's just the idea that like I am starting to learn lineups a little. And it is helping my team because I can give them a site setup that they can constantly have, that the enemy, you know, they might expect it, but it gives us a nice little boost on site, if that makes sense. So doing my job as a controller, getting better at playing controller. And so as we go into the final week of the challenge, I want to make it clear that I have every intention to try and get to gold. And so it's going to be interesting to see if we can continue this division a week trajectory that we've had over the last 3 weeks. Week 1 we placed in iron, week 2 we got to bronze, and in week 3 we've got to silver. So it's going to be hard. I'm definitely starting to feel my opponents are, you know, if I'm having a bad game, I get absolutely smoked. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this goes. I'm going to continue to play in duos or trios with the odd 5-stack. And as always, your continued viewership and support means a lot. So I hope that this video has been both informing and entertaining. If you're new or a veteran player of Valorant who just likes seeing a noob get crushed or confused, and make sure you tune in next week for the final episode to see where we get up to. Drop a like if you're enjoying it. Sub if you want to see the last episode. We've got more BTEC content coming soon. But this has been Vanadam. See you later. Finally, so many games. So many. We've just got gold to get out and then